When my stepchildren told me to know my place in their house, something inside me snapped. I had spent years trying to be the bigger person, trying to create a home that felt warm and welcoming for everyone, and yet all I got in return was coldness and disrespect. But that day, when those words came out of their mouths, I finally decided to show them exactly what my place was. And let me tell you, they weren't ready for it. But before I get to what I did, I need you to tell me if you think I went too far. Because honestly, I still wonder if maybe I could have handled things differently. Was I wrong for finally standing up for myself after years of being treated like an outsider? So let me start from the beginning. I met my husband, Tom, about 8 years ago. I was 35 at the time, and he was 43, a widower with 2 kids, Sarah and Jake, who was 14. I didn't have kids of my own, but I had always wanted a family. When I met Tom, he seemed kind, steady, and honest, the kind of man who had weathered some storms but still had a soft heart. We met at a charity event of all places. He was volunteering, and I was there helping organize. I remember noticing how patient he was with everyone, how gentle his voice sounded even when things went wrong. After that, we started seeing each other. Slowly at first, dinner, coffee, long walks. He told me about his late wife, Claire. She'd passed away suddenly from an illness, and it had taken him a long time to open up again. I respected that. I didn't want to replace her. I just wanted to build something new. For about a year, things were amazing between us. We took trips, spent weekends cooking together, and really built a deep connection. But when he decided it was time for me to meet the kids, well, that's when things started to get complicated. Sarah was polite but distant, and Jake barely said 2 words to me. I tried not to take it personally. They'd lost their mom, and I understood how hard it must have been seeing their dad with someone new. I told myself that if I just stayed patient and kind, things would eventually get better. But time passed, and the distance between us never closed. I'd try to talk to them, make their favorite meals, help with homework, all the things I thought a good stepmom should do, and they'd respond with short answers, eye rolls, or total silence. It hurt, but I told myself not to give up. When Tom and I got married 2 years later, I hoped it might mark a fresh start. We decided to move into their old house, the one Tom and Claire, mostly because it was close to the kids' schools and they didn't want to move. I agreed, though a part of me wished we could start somewhere new, a place that didn't have so many ghosts. But I didn't say anything. I thought maybe keeping them comfortable would help them accept me. It didn't. Living in that house felt like walking on eggshells. There were pictures of Claire everywhere, smiling family photos on the mantle, old vacation shots in the hallway. I never once asked Tom to take them down. I knew that would be cruel. But sometimes I felt like I was intruding on someone else's life. Sarah and Jake would constantly compare me to her. Mom used to do it this way, Sarah would say when I made dinner. Or Jake would mutter, Mom wouldn't have forgotten to buy my favorite cereal. It wasn't just passive comments either. There were cold stares, whispering behind my back, even slammed doors when I tried to talk to them. I'd cry at night, sometimes quietly, so Tom wouldn't hear. I didn't want to cause problems. I just wanted to belong. But it felt like no matter what I did, I was the enemy in my own home. Tom noticed, of course. He'd tell me to give them time. They'll come around, he'd say, kissing my forehead. They just miss their mom. I wanted to believe him, but years went by and nothing changed. If anything, it got worse as they got older. By the time Sarah went off to college and Jake was finishing high school, I had pretty much stopped trying to force anything. I kept my distance and focused on my marriage. I thought maybe when they matured, things would get better. And for a while, it seemed like it might. When Sarah graduated college and moved back home for a bit, she was polite enough. Jake was working by then, trying to figure out his next step. I tried again to reconnect, invited them for dinner, asked about their lives, but it still felt like they were humoring me. They were polite in front of Tom, but cold the minute he left the room. Then about a year ago, everything shifted. Tom's company offered him a position abroad, a huge opportunity. He'd have to relocate to London for about 18 months. It wasn't ideal, but the pay and career growth were incredible. The plan was for me to stay behind and keep the house running since both kids were still in and out of the place. Sarah had started a master's program nearby, and Jake had moved back temporarily after a breakup. Tom wanted them to have a stable home base. I agreed. I figured it would be fine, maybe even a chance to finally bond without him around. Big mistake. From the moment Tom left, the atmosphere in the house changed. Sarah and Jake acted like they were the homeowners, and I was just some tenant. They'd leave messes everywhere. Dishes piled up, laundry on the couch, food left out overnight. I'd remind them to clean up, and they'd roll their eyes. Sarah once said, "You're not our mom, so stop bossing us around." That stung, but I bit my tongue. I told her, "I'm not your mom, but this is still my home too." She laughed and said, "No offense." "But it's Dad's house. You're just staying here?" I was floored. I said, "Excuse me? I've lived here for years. I pay bills. I maintain this place. It's our home." She shrugged. "Yeah, but you only got that because of Dad. It's not really yours." I remember standing there holding a pile of folded towels, completely speechless. That's when Jake chimed in from the living room. "Sarah's right. Maybe just chill a bit. Like, know your place?" That phrase, know your place, it echoed in my head like a slap. I laughed because it was funny because I couldn't believe the audacity. I said, "You want me to know my place? Fine. I'll do exactly that." They both exchanged glances but didn't say anything else. So I did. Over the next few days, I stopped doing everything I used to do around the house. No cooking, no cleaning, no groceries, no laundry. I made sure to take care of myself only. I'd cook a single serving of dinner, clean my own dishes, and leave their mess exactly where they left it. The first few days, they didn't notice much. But by the end of the week, the kitchen was disgusting, the bathroom smelled awful, and the laundry room looked like a war zone. Sarah finally asked, "Are you going to clean any of this?" And I said calmly, "Oh, I thought you wanted me to know my place. I figured my place didn't include doing your chores." She glared at me and said, "You're being petty." I smiled and said, "No, just following instructions." They both started getting frustrated. Sarah ran out of clean clothes. Jake complained that the fridge was empty. I just kept living my life. I even started locking my pantry and my bedroom door because I noticed some of my food and cleaning supplies disappearing. That's when things escalated. One evening, I came home from work to find Sarah and Jake sitting in the living room, clearly waiting for me. Sarah said, "We need to talk." I sat down and asked what was going on. She said, "This isn't working. You're making things tense. This house doesn't feel like home anymore." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, "I'm making things tense?" "After years of you two treating me like a stranger," Jake jumped in, "you're supposed to keep things together, not make it worse." I laughed bitterly. "Supposed to? According to who?" "You two told me to know my place. And my place, apparently, is not being respected, not being listened to, and certainly not cleaning up after two grown adults who treat me like dirt." Sarah rolled her eyes. "God, you're so dramatic." That's when I finally said, "You know what? You're right. This house isn't working. Not for me anyway. So you can both figure out how to pay for the bills, the cleaning, and the food. Because I'm done." And then I meant it. The next morning, I packed a few bags and went to stay with my sister across town. I didn't tell Tom right away because I wanted to calm down first. Within a few days, Sarah and Jake started texting me. At first passive-aggressively, then desperately. "The trash is full. The internet bill needs paying. The sink's clogged." I responded once, "Figure it out, know your place." Now, here's where it got interesting. About 2 weeks later, Tom called me from London. He sounded worried. He said Sarah and Jake had called him, saying I'd abandoned the house and left them struggling. I told him everything, every word they'd said, every disrespectful comment. The "know your place" remark that pushed me over the edge. There was a long silence on the phone, and then he said quietly, "They really said that to you?" I said yes. He sighed deeply and said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." A few days later, Tom called a video meeting with all of us. Sarah and Jake were sitting in the living room looking smug like they thought he was going to scold me. But Tom surprised everyone. He said, "I've made a decision. The house is being transferred into joint ownership, my name and hers. It's our marital home, and that means it belongs to both of us. If either of you can't respect that, you can find somewhere else to live." You could have heard a pin drop. Sarah's jaw literally dropped. Jake said, "What? That's not fair." Tom looked at them and said, "What's not fair is how you've treated her. She's been nothing but kind to you, and you've walked all over her. That stops now." I sat there, stunned. For the first time, he was truly standing up for me. Sarah started crying, saying she didn't mean it, that it was just words said in frustration. Jake muttered an apology, but I could tell he didn't mean it. I stayed calm and simply said, "I'm glad you both understand now." After that call, Tom and I talked privately. He told me he was proud of me for setting boundaries and that he was sorry he hadn't stepped in sooner. He even arranged for a cleaner to help with the house until I decided whether to move back in. But I told him I wasn't ready. I needed time to think about whether I even wanted to live with them again. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice whether to forgive and move back home or to let them live with the consequences of their behavior. Before I tell you what I decided, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have gone back after all that, or would you have stayed away for good? Because honestly, I went back and forth about it for weeks. Eventually, I decided to move back, but on my terms. I told Tom I'd return only if Sarah and Jake understood that the old dynamics were over. I wasn't going to be their maid or their punching bag anymore. If they wanted to live there, they'd contribute Core's bills, respect the works. Tom agreed and laid out the rules before I came home. When I finally walked back through that front door, things were awkward. The tension was thick. Sarah kept her distance for the first few days, and Jake avoided me completely. But slowly, something started to shift. I think Tom's intervention had shocked them more than they expected. Sarah began doing her share around the house without me asking. She even apologized one evening, genuinely, this time. She said, "I guess I didn't realize how much you did. I'm sorry for being so rude before." That meant a lot. Jake took longer, but eventually he followed her lead. We'll never be a perfect family. I've accepted that. But things are civil now, respectful, and that's more than I could have asked for. As for me, I learned a huge lesson. Sometimes being quiet and patient only teaches people that it's okay to treat you badly. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you the villain. It makes you strong. So, if you're ever in a situation where someone tells you to know your place, don't forget that your place is wherever you decide it is, not where someone else tries to put you. Anyway, that's my story. Do you think I was wrong for how I handled it? Should I have stayed and tried to work things out earlier, or was walking away the right move? Like this video if you were on my side, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think about how Sarah and Jake behaved, and whether you think they ever truly learned their lesson. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.